Hello, travelers, and welcome back to Adventures in Security. In this episode, we're going to talk about business continuity planning, how to develop a business continuity program, and how to manage it over time. Business continuity planning, or contingency planning, is an important part of security. It directly supports the availability portion of the security triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Business continuity planning, or BCP, involves looking forward, ensuring operation of business processes during attacks, system component failures, or catastrophic events. The content of this presentation is based on the CISSP Common Body of Knowledge. More detailed discussions for some topics covered are available via the links provided in the associated document available for download at the link shown below. BCP includes planning for disasters, but disasters happen much less frequently than smaller events. Server or switch failures are much more likely than a tornado taking down a data center. BCP includes looking at things that might and will interrupt business processes, especially single points of failure. Disaster recovery plans are implemented with business continuity when business continuity activities fail. Stewart, Chappell, and Gibson, referenced in the paper associated with this presentation, write that one easy way to remember the difference is that BCP comes first, and if the BCP efforts fail, DRP, or disaster recovery planning, steps in to fill the gap. For example, consider the case of a data center located downstream from a dam. BCP efforts might involve verifying that municipal authorities perform appropriate preventive maintenance on the dam and reinforcing the data center to protect it from floodwaters. End quote. BCP is another form of risk analysis. It looks at the cost to the business if business processes are not available for some reason. A formula for this is P times M equals C, where P is probability of harm. What is the probability that a planned for event might occur? What threats to continuity exist? What are the continuity vulnerabilities? And what is the likelihood that an event, a threat leveraging a vulnerability, will occur? And this value is always annualized. M is magnitude of harm. What is the business impact if the event occurs? This is also annualized. And C is cost. What is the potential cost to the business for the event under study? This is another way of looking at the risk formula: risk equals threats times vulnerabilities times business impact. And in both models, we annualize the numbers. We annualize because whatever we do to mitigate costs involves the annual budget. We need to sell mitigation to management based on annual cost versus annual prevention cost. If the cost in this year's budget is $50,000, annually to prevent $40,000 in potential annual losses, management will likely accept a business interruption cost. However, if we can come up with a solution that is annually $20,000 for the same event, it's very likely you'll get approval for the budget dollars. Annualizing costs begins with determining a probability factor. For example, assume that a specific event will occur on average every 3 years. We annualize this by dividing 100% probability, by 3, arriving at 0.33, or an annual 33% probability. Consequently, when we multiply 0.33 by the magnitude of harm, we arrive at an annual cost. Using real numbers, we determine that a server failure will likely take down a specific critical process every 5 years, based on mean time before failure. This results in an annualized probability of occurrence of 1 divided by 5, or 0.20. If this system fails, it will cost the company $100,000 per day. Based on existing response capabilities, it will take about 2 days to recover the process. Therefore, the total cost of an event is $200,000. We multiply this by the annualized probability of occurrence, 0.20 times 200,000, resulting in an annual cost for this event of $40,000. The BCP process is continuous and should be part of every project plan and all change management risk reviews. It begins with policy. Management must initiate BCP activities by establishing expectations about ensuring business process availability. An example of a BCP policy is available from SANS.org. This policy is titled Disaster Recovery, but it's easily extended to all BCP activities. Once the policy is in place, the organization needs a documented process for determining business interruption risk. Stewart, Chappell, and Gibson write that the steps to ensuring good BCP are project scope and planning, business impact assessment, continuity planning, and approval and implementation. These steps form a complete project when initially performed. That is, when no business continuity or disaster recovery plan exists. Once plans do exist, they are steps contained within every IT project and ensured with a strong change management process. When a business continuity plan does not already exist, project scope includes identifying all critical business processes. This should have already been done when the organization performed an overall risk assessment. Every organization should start its security management activities by identifying critical systems. If this has not been done, the organization is likely throwing money at security without focusing on what addresses the most risk. Updating the list of critical processes and associated infrastructure is part of any change management process. Making necessary changes to all system documentation, including recovery processes, must be included in any update or replacement project. When creating an initial plan or managing an existing plan, we need a team that makes recovery decisions. According to Stewart, Chappell, and Gibson, we do this by identifying operational departments that are responsible for the core services the business provides to its clients. Critical support services, such as the Information Technology Department, Plant Maintenance Department, and other groups responsible for the upkeep of systems that support the operational departments. And senior executives and other key individuals essential for the ongoing viability of the organization. The BCP team should represent all identified stakeholders. These three steps also help us ensure that we address all critical processes. Business impact assessment should be done for each business process. One of the first steps in this process is calculating the process maximum tolerable downtime. How long can the process be down before the business suffers irreparable harm? Critical process recovery should come before this time expires. In addition to MDT, or maximum tolerable downtime, the team should also work with the business to determine the business impact of process downtime. Business impact always happens, even if the MTD is not reached. As with risk assessments, this impact can either be quantitative or qualitative. A hybrid approach uses both dollars and values when complete dollar analysis is not possible. One important consideration during impact analysis is how regulations might affect process downtime. During impact analysis, the team prioritizes processes and associated infrastructure. During continuity planning, the team determines how to manage the business impact identified. As with any risk, the team can recommend to accept, reduce, assign, or reject. Business impact is usually accepted if the annualized cost of mitigation is more than the projected annualized cost of a process failure. The cost of mitigation involves multiple elements. Implementation costs. This is the additional infrastructure required to remove single points of failure. Is it necessary to engage a third-party hot site, cold site, or hybrid warm site provider? Is creation of co-location a better choice? What would be the cost of simply moving systems to a cloud service provider? Will staff need new skills to use implemented mitigation solutions? What is the cost of training? Is it necessary to hire someone who already has experience? If additional software or hardware is implemented in the data center, what are the annual maintenance fees? And one FTE, or full-time equivalent, is the salary, tax, and benefit costs of one employee qualified to maintain or manage the implemented solutions. What is the cost of the needed FTE? How many FTEs are needed? What is the annual cost of these FTEs? Is additional staffing needed? Are these FTEs taken from other tasks? If so, what are the opportunity costs? When determining how to reduce impact, be sure to consider availability of rebuild documentation, easily accessible configuration files, recovery time objectives, and maximum time to repair. Assigning is the transfer of the cost associated with an event. This is usually done by purchasing cyber insurance. When assessing insurance, be sure your attorneys read the fine print about what is actually covered or not covered. In some cases, the organization might be able to contractually obligate a vendor or cloud service provider to assume some or all of the cost. What management can never transfer, however, is ultimate responsibility for ensuring the continued operation of the organization. The other costs not transferable are associated with loss of customer and investor confidence, both short-term and long-term. The approval and implementation process is not a project. It is a process. It continues after the initial BCP project ends. What follows is the documentation and implementation of initial BCP. Following this, we'll take a look at how we integrate a BCP process into all process and infrastructure changes. If management supports the BCP policy and is fully engaged and trained in BCP, usually trained by the BCP team, approval of an overall plan or a plan for specific system is not difficult. But any approval requires the team to present its findings and recommendations in a way management cares about. When making any risk management presentation to management, it is always about the impact to the bottom line. In many organizations, ethical conduct by the business is also a big consideration. It should always be, but sometimes. Consequently, when the team creates its presentation, it's important to explain how the continuity vulnerabilities, prevention, detection, and response, can significantly reduce profits or cause significant harm to customers, employees, investors, and other stakeholders. Initial implementation of a BCP involves three primary activities: documentation, training and education, and maintenance. Ensuring maintenance is part of documentation, but we look at it separately in this presentation. According to Stewart, Chappell, and Gibson, documents should accomplish the following. It ensures that BCP personnel have a written continuity document to reference in the event of an emergency, even if senior BCP team members are not present to guide the effort. It provides a historical record of the BCP process that will be useful to future personnel seeking to both understand the reasoning behind various procedures and implement necessary changes in the plan. And it forces the team members to commit their thoughts to paper, a process that often facilitates the identification of flaws in the plan. Having the plan on paper also allows draft documents to be distributed to individuals not on the BCT team for a sanity check. End quote. The document should contain sections that describe the continuity planning goals. This section defines the BCP goals focused on by the team during plan design. It should also include a statement of management support. There should be a statement of importance. The document must clearly explain why business continuity activities are important to the business. its employees, its customers, and its investors. It explains that the continued viability of the organization depends on this plan. A statement of priorities. During critical process identification and business impact analysis, the team prioritizes processes and related business continuity activities. This section should list all critical business processes listed by importance to the organization. Statement of urgency and timing. During an initial BCP planning project, an action plan is completed to bring the organization's risk to an acceptable level. The action plan includes prioritized tasks to mitigate risk associated with likely process failures and associated business impact. It assigns a responsible resolution team or person and a remediation completion date. And risk mitigation and acceptance. This section is very important. It explains why each risk is mitigated, accepted, or transferred. For presentation to management, these are the team's recommendations. For the final document, this is modified to reflect management's decisions and the reasons for those decisions. This is important information for future audits and justification when the inevitable business continuity event happens. In addition to the initial report and plan, the team should ensure an incident response plan exists. The organization should consider integrating business continuity response in attack response processes. In this way, the same team is trained and ready to respond to any interruption to business processes. The response plan should include immediate response procedures, including safety and fire procedures, fire suppression procedures, notification of appropriate emergency response agencies, etc. It should include a list of individuals who should be notified of the incident. And it should have secondary response procedures that first responders should take while waiting for the BCP team to assemble. No security activity is successful unless those responsible are regularly trained and tested. BCP training and education begins with all system design and management teams being aware of how to identify and manage continuity vulnerabilities. In every project, in every modification activity, new or modified system designs must be reviewed for these vulnerabilities. Business continuity awareness must extend throughout the SDLC. All IT personnel must understand what business continuity vulnerabilities look like and what to do when identified. This helps locate and manage any vulnerabilities missed during project, change management, and risk reviews. Ensuring continuous attention to business continuity is part of the risk review and the change management process. The purpose of change management is to ensure the implementation of new systems or modification of existing systems without breaking anything, including information security risk, failure of business process operation after the change, or the introduction of business continuity risk. Consequently, all reviewers involved in change approval, including members of the Change Advisory Board, must be aware of what constitutes a business continuity vulnerability. Another activity in which an organization can identify business continuity and vulnerabilities is the risk assessment. Each critical system and related network should be assessed at least once per year. Including business continuity and risk assessments is necessary if an organization wants to identify and manage all business risk. The takeaways from this presentation are clear. Business continuity planning is necessary to ensure complete coverage of the CIA triad availability element. BCP includes disaster recovery. However, disasters are a small part of overall continuity planning. BCP must include any vulnerability, no matter how small, that might interrupt one or more critical business processes. Implementation of business continuity management begins with a policy and continues with integrating business continuity tasks in all design, implementation, and change management processes. Business continuity management should permeate all IT activities, including design and implementation, risk assessment, change management, and all day-to-day activities. And that's the end of the presentation. If you go to the link shown on the screen, you can download a document that contains all of the information covered, as well as links to locations where you can get more detailed information, as well as tools you can use in not only planning, but also in your day-to-day business continuity activities. And that's it. Be careful what you click.